What's up everyone, PJ Mills here again with another review, and just like the past couple times, I'm going to be keeping things a little laid back and whatnot because I've been getting a lot of positive feedback and feeling pretty good about the format and whatnot. Today we're going to be talking about Jen Ledger's first release as a solo artist, and the project is entitled Ledger, and it is a 6-song EP that was released on April 13th of this year, 2018. I'm sure all of you know this, but she is the drummer for the very popular Christian rock band Skillet. And I've actually been listening to Skillet for a long time, got into their music back in high school with the release of Collide and then obviously Comatose and whatnot. And I enjoyed their music quite a bit back in the day. I gotta say, I haven't been as big of a fan recently, just because I kind of feel a lot of their stuff has felt really formulaic and not necessarily anything very exciting, unfortunately. I know there's talent there, and I think really what I appreciate about Skillet from a musical perspective is the fact that they do seem like genuinely nice people, which I know that seems like a weird compliment and a weird thing to say because, I mean, obviously when you're an artist, you kind of want the music or art that you're producing to kind of be what people are enjoying. But I gotta say that having listened to interviews and just kind of been in touch with their connection to the industry, I do think that they seem like very kind people, which can sometimes be a bit of a rarity for some bands. So that is one thing I've always appreciated about them as a band. And for me, I obviously enjoy Jen Ledger's drumming capabilities, and I think she's a very talented drummer. And I do think she has a great voice. It's obviously not necessarily what I would consider to be a gruff or rough voice in any way. It's very kind of clean and kind of popish in a way, and that's not necessarily a diss, it's just kind of a fact. Her voice is more in line with the genre of pop than it is rock. But Skillet's always been able to kind of blend her voice with John Cooper's voice in such a way that it still feels gritty. So I was very interested when they were saying that they were going to be releasing an EP of just kind of her music, if you will, because that's actually something that I thought would have been nice to have on their last release, Unleashed, because I kind of think that if they're going to continue to develop as a band, they need to try to broaden their sound. And I thought maybe by having Jen Ledger kind of get in the driver's seat on a song or two, that might kind of help. And interestingly, they decided to go on a separate route when it comes to that, which is cool. And so I was definitely interested to kind of hear what everything would sound like. So with that, let's go ahead and jump into the EP, and I'm going to go ahead and take it track by track, and we'll walk through, and then at the end we'll kind of summarize, or I'll summarize my thoughts. The first song on Jen's EP is Not Dead Yet, and from my perspective, it's kind of been the song that they're really pushing to kind of get out there and be kind of the big single from the EP, if you will. And to be 100% honest, when I listened to it, and even when I saw the song title, I was a little disappointed, just because the song title as well as the song itself and the lyrics were just so in line with everything Skillet. I mean, it basically just sounded like a Skillet song with Jen singing, and I kind of don't want that from Jen Ledger's side project. I want it to be wholly unique. I don't want it to feel like Skillet, if you know what I mean. And the truth of the matter is, this topic of kind of not gonna die, or, you know, rebirthing, or just this kind of anti-death anthem, if you will. It's not that I disagree with the topic or think that it's a bad topic to sing about, but it's just Skillet has hit this nail on the head so many freaking times at this point. And I honestly think that they had a better bearing on this back in the day. At this point, it just kind of seems redundant. And even on Unleashed, they had a song, I believe it was called I Wanna Live, and it was exactly what you think it would be. And to me, it was a little disappointing. And so on this EP, when I saw the title and heard the song, it was kind of a bit of a letdown from a lyrical standpoint. I think Jen's vocals sound pretty good. They're definitely a little bit rougher than she typically sings. And when I say rougher, I'm not saying like, you know, she's screaming or anything like that. I just more mean she's kind of trying to vary her vocal tones a little bit and maybe try to hit some of the low notes and whatnot. And so I did think it was impressive from that perspective, but lyrically it was kind of a glaring issue for me, just how much it felt like a Skillet song. The next track on the EP is Warrior, and it's a bit of a pump up song, but for me, again, the lyrics are just kind of really weak and didn't offer a lot. I mean, it's a lot of repetition. This is the sound of the warrior cry, stuff like this. Kind of stuff that you would expect to hear from a song entitled Warrior. Also, John Cooper is featured on this song, and to me it was kind of funny because I didn't actually know he was going to be on the song, and so when he started singing on the track, I was just kind of like, "What? John Cooper?" I was like, "Is this Skillet or is this Ledger?" And obviously, I get, you know, featuring John Cooper is a good safe move because obviously, I mean, they're on tour together, so it's not like this big inconvenience to get him to walk into the, you know, sound booth and record a real quick bit. But for me, I wasn't that impressed with this track. I thought it was a little simple from a production standpoint, very, very simple from a lyrical standpoint, and even just the voices, they weren't really that incredible to me. Track 3 is Bold, and again, a little bit of a weak song for me personally. I thought the lyrical focus was pretty much just taking the word bold and then just kind of trying to figure out ways to, you know, sing about the word bold. I mean, and a lot of the rhyming in this track is exactly what you would think it would be, like rhyming bold with gold and hold and it was so basic. And also vocally, I think she's done better. Like I said, I think she probably really kind of stood out a lot more on track 1 as compared to these two songs, Warrior and Bold. It wasn't really anything fresh or exciting or anything to really get me excited about her as an independent artist. The next song is Foreigner, and this was the first track that really kind of got my attention more than any of the other ones that came before it. Mostly because it was kind of a weird song. Some of the production decisions were a little funky, and I actually kind of enjoyed it a little bit. It's a little out there, a little kind of techno-ish and a little electronic-y, and it's definitely full-on pop, which that's another thing that I wanted to kind of clarify. Thus far, the album has been 100% pop. Really, probably the furthest from pop would have been the first track. Like I mentioned, it sounded a lot like Skillet, but even Skillet these days is really kind of leaning more on the pop side of things. I really enjoyed the melody. It was incredibly catchy and memorable in that standpoint. I thought Jen's vocals were really fantastic. And while I do think the lyrics are, again, very simple and even a little kind of cringy at points, I did think that here they were a bit of a step up from the past tracks, just because they didn't really feel like a Skillet song. They definitely felt more unique and kind of outside of the Skillet parameter, if you will. And while I do think the translation of the track is very basic, and what I mean by that is just the fact that the translation to me seems like it could be very straightforward, just kind of this idea of not being of this earth and kind of being connected to heaven as opposed to bound to the earthly flesh and things of that nature. And again, there's nothing wrong with that. I think, you know, obviously quite a few Christian artists have kind of sung about this topic, but for me, and again, I do kind of feel like to a certain extent I'm kind of stretching things here when I say this, but when I was listening to it the first time, I was kind of reflecting on the fact that Jen's obviously not from the States, and when she moved here, she was kind of studying music. At least that's kind of what I got from a couple interviews that I was watching. And then she got connected to Skillet, and still to this day is one of the newer members of the band. And obviously she's not new. She's been in the band for quite a while, but comparatively speaking to obviously John and Corey, she's one of the newer members. And so to a certain extent, she's a bit of an outsider. And so I was kind of thinking about it in regards to that and kind of like where she is from a career perspective and just how she's maybe disconnected from a lot of other people around her. And again, I'm completely aware of the fact that this is very much a stretch because I do think that the song is more about what I initially mentioned. But again, it was just something I was kind of reflecting on when I was listening to this song. And it got me thinking, like, I really wish that songs like that would be the focus for Jen Ledger's side project, because I really think that hearing things like that could be really interesting from a artistic standpoint, and that's something that Skillet doesn't really sing about. And I think it would be cool if she did sing about topics like that, things that were very personal to her. Track 5 is Ruins, and this is kind of the ballad on the EP. And it's actually a pretty good track, and I thought her vocals on it were really, really fantastic. And to be 100% honest, they're very, and again, this might come across as a huge negative, but they kind of reminded me a lot of Taylor Swift in a way. And I don't have a problem with Taylor Swift. I think she's functional as a vocalist. I thought the lyrics, again, kind of dealing with that whole idea of being broken and being broken down by God. It was kind of funny because when I was listening to this, I was kind of like, man, I really hope that as Jen continues to mature and develop as an artist, she really starts to make her music even more personal, because I think she can do it. I do think that there's talent there, and I would love to see that mature and develop further, because right now I do think to a certain extent there's a bit of this situation where maybe she kind of feels stuck in just singing about a very specific, thing. And while I don't think there's anything wrong at all about just singing about God specifically, I think there is a audience of people that can really connect to you if you sing about being a person and going through, life experiences, and then bringing God into that. The last song on the album is Iconic, and it is track 6, and it is definitely a full-on pop song, kind of a pop anthem, if you will. And while it does kind of run similar to Bold in the fact that it kind of takes a big buzzword and kind of just builds a song around it, I found myself enjoying this one a lot more just because I felt like, 1, it was catchier, 2, it just had an energy that I really enjoyed, 3, I thought her voice was really, really fantastic here. It reminded me a lot of like Katy Perry on her song E.T., but obviously not quite as suggestive as E.T. was. It felt like one of those songs that would be a lot of fun to play at a large scale event because it had a lot of energy. It was kind of fun to bob your head to and things like that. And to me, it was another standout moment from the EP. All right, so that's all the tracks. Now I'm gonna kind of summarize my overall opinion. And obviously, I'm sure y'all have a pretty good idea of where I'm gonna go with my opinion just because I've already kind of touched on all the different songs and whatnot. But for me personally, I thought this EP was kind of a mixed bag. I was not a big fan of the first half. I thought it was a little predictable and weak and not a lot of really interesting moments on it. But then the latter half of the album, I thought had a lot more interesting points, and it got me excited about her as an independent artist. I think one of the big things is this EP might be disappointing to some fans just because obviously Skillet is a rock band, albeit they're transitioning away from it a little bit these days. But I think probably a lot of people were hoping that it would be this rocky EP with, some cool guitar stuff and then like some heavy drums, but it's definitely not that. Corey and Jen definitely kind of take the music in a direction that's definitely more influenced by pop sounds, and I enjoy the genre of pop, so I had no problem with it. I do think that some songs work better than others. Obviously, like I said, the last half I think is significantly better, and I definitely think they were more in touch with what actually makes pop work. And I definitely think there's a real ability to come up with some catchy melodies here that are definitely gonna get stuck in your head, so that's good. But for me, I guess the big negative are the lyrics. I wish there was a bigger drive to sing about things that were personal and not just broad like, oh, I'm not gonna die, or I'm gonna be bold, or things like that. I really wish there was a desire to sing about personal experiences, like I kind of mentioned. Sing about your experience as a drummer in the band Skillet, maybe some of the struggles that you've experienced and things like that. I feel like I'm talking directly to Jen Ledger right now, but I guess that's what I was really hoping to hear, and that's what I hope we hear in the future, because the fact of the matter is being a human is not an easy thing. It brings with it a lot of struggles, a lot of sorrow, but then there's also a lot of happy times. And while I understand the desire to kind of create music that's really infused with hope and excitement and joy, and there's nothing wrong with that, I think that there's something to be said about creating music that's personal, that can be connected to beyond just, oh, this is music to make people happy, There's a reason rock bands are popular when they really get down and dirty and produce music that's vulnerable, because it helps people connect to it. And I really do think that Jen Ledger has that ability. I think there were moments on this album that I thought maybe she was going in that direction, but then after kind of really reading the lyrics and thinking about it, I was kind of like, okay, maybe it's not quite like that. But there's a part of me that wants it to be that way, because I think it would be great if we had a Christian female pop artist who really could connect with fans in a way that was very personal and very real. And I think she has that potential, but we'll kind of have to see in the future how that goes. A 5 out of 10. Alright everyone, I hope you enjoyed that video, and please feel free to share down below what y'all thought about the EP. I'd love to see the feedback, and let's get a conversation started, because that's what I want to do here. I want to create conversations, connect people with new music that maybe they haven't heard before, and who knows, maybe you'll fall in love with an artist that I bring up on my YouTube channel, and it might become your favorite artist, and you'll go see them in concert 50 billion times, and then you'll be like, thanks PJ for hooking me up.